Hi, and welcome to the DIY Photo Organising podcast, focusing on topics to help you with your photo management. I am Fiona from Photo Helper.
And I am Chantal from Photos in Order. Hi, Fiona.
Hi, Chantal.
And hi, lovely listeners. We've missed you.
We
Welcome.
have.
As you might have noticed, we had a long summer break. um, Not necessarily a holiday as such, but yeah, what were you up to, Fiona? Tell us.
Well, our last posting on our release was the end of November. So since then, yes, I finished up my first year of uni, doing my Bachelor of Counselling, which I absolutely loved. So thrilled that I'm now in my second year, starting now. So that's great. Yeah, just time with family, some, yeah, really just a bit of a renewing, refreshing. um, yeah, worked on my photos a little bit, my own. So that's always nice. But yeah, it's been a lovely break. How about yourself?
Yeah, me too. I started off with a little holiday with a friend who came over from Switzerland, and we did a week-long trip, which was absolutely lovely. And then we had nice Christmas, and I didn't go anywhere in January, but as you did, we just can't help ourselves, can we? I worked on my own photos because I have to admit I had neglected them a little bit because I was so busy working for other people and their photos.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm so glad I've done it. It involves a few bigger steps that took time, and I'm glad that's now done and I can just chip away at it now.
It's so good. I think it's a reminder, really, for all of us that this, photo organizing as a project is just always an ongoing thing.
It is.
It is. And I think it's like our health. It's like, any area in our life that we just maintain, we maintain good habits in different ways. And organizing our photos is just the same. And I think if we approach it like that and we realize that sometimes in life, you know, maybe we're not walking as much if a health is our, a goal for us, but we know we can pick back up again and we can just start doing our regular routine of walking. And obviously in the analogy with our photos, it's the same thing. So, if you if you're listening and this is sort of a resonating with you as far as having done your, you've maybe had a great progress with a project you're working on with your photos, and it just did become a little bit overwhelming, or life got in the way and different commitments came up, then, like Chantal just said, and I do the same, is sometimes it's just, it's okay, put that behind you. It's a part of life in all different, things that we do, and working with our photos, it's no different. So
Hmm.
it's the reality, isn't it, Chantal?
Very true. Very, very wise words, and so true. I think yes.
Yeah, to be motivated to just say it's okay, pick back up.
That's right.
Mm.
So today, we want to talk about a question that we get asked quite a bit. We hear it all the time, basically. But before we go into it, we just want to remind you that when you go to our show notes or onto our website, you will find a link to our wish list. And that's the place for you to pull in your own question if you do have any questions related to photos, whether they're digital or prints, or projects like photo books and things like that. Please don't hesitate, don't be shy. Use that link, go on the wish list. It's just a short little Google form to fill in, and we'll answer your question, be it directly to your email or message, or sometimes we do make an episode out of it. So, yeah, don't forget you can do that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about today's question. which is people asking, what should I do with my negatives? Can I throw them out? What do you tell them, Fee?
All right. So, everyone listening, keep your negatives, please, 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 please keep your negatives. So that really is the short. We could finish the episode right there, Chantal, but we won't. We have some good stuff for you guys on negatives, but that really is the short answer is please keep them. And we'll just jump into a little bit about why and some suggestions, a little bit about the differences between prints and negatives, so why that could be helpful for you to know that difference so that you will keep them. And then also we'll talk a little bit about scanning and archiving as well. So the first thing that we wanted to just explain around this idea of keeping our negatives is negatives are the original capture of a photo. And so there's a lot of really important information in there. And when I say information, I'm talking about the detail in the photo, the colors in the photo, the size of the frame, you know, the not just sort of a cropped part of a photo, it's the full frame of the photo. So that kind of information is in the negatives, and that's the original capture. So that's the first reason why we want to keep those negatives, because we want to be able to, when we're preserving them, get as much great information out of that negative to preserve it and restore it if we need to. So that's our first reason why we're saying we really don't want to lose that bit of that really good, valuable bit of information.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Hmm. So another reason is not a reason as such, but when you keep the negatives, what we would suggest is to keep them together with the prints. You know, if let's assume you've got an envelope with prints and that also has the negatives, don't pull it all apart and, you know, throw the negatives somewhere in a box and throw the photos in another box. Keep them together because that will make it a lot easier to get organized.
I wish I'd heard that myself.
Me too.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. When I when I was first starting out in this whole thing, I'm like, oh, I'll just collect it all and put my negatives over here and my photos over. Anyway, but it's really, really helpful information to know, because then you can see I've got the negatives to that. So you can see and have them scanned, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but you can compare that to, you know, the print, and yeah, it's so much easier if you keep them together. So please do that. From experience, unfortunately. Oh dear. Yeah, so another one is I just wanted to read a little bit out of the book from Adam Pratt with the Declutter Your Photo Life, because he captures this really well. So we'll put the link in the show notes if anyone wants to grab a copy of his book, which is fantastic. But he just says, which is what we were saying, don't separate out your negatives. And don't consider your negatives useless. You know, Adam has a lot of experience in working with many, many clients. And so, yeah, it is. And that's why we're bringing this up as a topic, as we see it as well. That people sort of say, well, I can't see them. Is it really worth it? Yeah. So he's saying the same thing. They're not useless to keep them. And negatives, he's saying here, are almost always the best source to scan. And then again, separating prints from negatives makes the organization harder, so keep them together. And so we'll go into about the best source to scan. But the reason why we want to keep our negatives and prints together too is that it leaves clues when we get them together. Sometimes we've written on the packaging, we've got a receipt in there that might have a date. There could be some location or something like that. So if our negatives are separate, then we really lose all that valuable information. So that's another really important reason as to why we want to try to keep them together if we can.
As you just said, Fiona, we want to talk a bit about scanning and in particular the difference between scanning a print and scanning the negative of that print. But I'll hand that over to you, Fiona, because your specialty is scanning and you have scanned lots of negatives and prints for myself and for my clients, but you're the pro in that, so I'll leave the word over to you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so the main reason why we would go initially for the negative and is because, like I said before, the digital information is in that negative. So we've got the raw information, which is our colors are in there, or if they're black and white, we've got the size, the original captured size of that frame. That's in the negative. They are a lot sharper and clearer, that negative is, because on a print we have so many variables that have come from the lab, where the print lab, where we've got that photo printed out. So we've got the variable of the paper that they've used, the variable of the ink that they've used. And when we're talking about the ink, that might just be the quality of the ink, but then that impacts then how quickly they fade, the discoloration that you can get, those oranges that come through, the greens and blues that can come through. So the ink that they use, that's impacted by the ink in the paper. And then also the size of the print, they can crop, dramatically. So we've missed some really important detail that's in the original captured negative. So these are just some really good reasons why we would go for scanning the negative before we do the print. Um, the prints can not only have the paper and the ink and the size different, but they can also sometimes be silver, have silvering that have come through, which is hard for us to capture the raw information through that print. So the reason I would just say we do that first, we look at the negatives first, is because sometimes, depending on how those negatives have been stored and the life that they've led in the however many years they've been around, it can be pretty devastating. There can be a lot of damage on those negatives, mold, and just that's the biggest thing I've come across, is the mold and mildew. Dust, can definitely, if they've been sticky, something's spilt on it and then dust just sticks to it. And there's some emulsion cleaners you can use, and there's definitely ways around it, but I would strongly suggest talking to a professional about that before you try anything, because that's could be very precious information. The only source of the real data on that negative is all you have, with wedding photos or something like that from family or grandparents, and historical photos that you just want to get some good advice around, because that is caring for them is definitely something that in the past people have just thrown them in a box, and we've all heard about the boxes under the bed of negatives in the cupboards, haven't we? So I have definitely come across negatives that are really just really sad, poor quality, and I've gone then to the print,
Mhm.
and I've scanned that, and then I've color corrected that to bring it back to as best I can of that original. Yeah. But just definitely something to be aware of. Why, again, it's really good to keep those prints with the negatives, so that we can at least have a look and see if there is damage, and we can try and salvage the print, and then you've got those memories still retained.
And also, just as a bit of a side question here to you, because I know you do the camera scanning, um, so you basically take a photo of the photo,
Yep.
obviously with a really good camera and the necessary equipment and all of that. But from what I um, uh, gathered from previous conversations, to scan a negative for you doesn't actually take longer, or at least not a lot longer than it would. to scan a print. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. So once you've got the setup done with the camera and the settings and the cleaning, that's really important. And I've got some, and good scanners out there will have the same, materials where we pretty much run it through even a demagnetizer so that the dust doesn't stick to it straight after you've cleaned it. I mean, it's dust is everywhere, especially when you've got a good camera. You can see it on everything. It's terrible, terrible stuff. um, but yeah, once you've got that setup done, yeah, you can just it's not a difficult process that to get overwhelmed by. If someone's going to try and do that, and go about that and do it at home, you definitely can. You can get the right equipment. You can set yourself, if you've got a lot and it's going to be cheaper for you than outsourcing it to somebody. It's definitely an option, and it's not something to be, confronted by and say, I can't do it, because like anything, a new skill that we have, we just go about it, we learn it. There's some great resources on our courses page. Actually, Chantal, we've got some great stuff again by Pratt, because he really is an expert in this area in the US. And has clients all over the world, actually. But he has a great course about learning how to do that if this is something that you wanted to do. So check out the courses tab on our website. You might be able to find something there that might help you. But yeah, it's definitely something which isn't as overwhelming, and not a reason to not have a go at either outsourcing or doing it yourself. Once the setup's done, you can it's just a process. Just churn them out. Click, 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 click. And then you've got to do the software change at the other end once you've captured the image. But I love all that stuff. It's really fun to see the colors come to light.
Oh, it's amazing.
Oh, it is amazing.
As I said before, and we'll put some examples in the show notes. You might have to go to the website though to read those. I'm not sure whether the images will show up in your podcast app on the phone, but on the website it's gonna be definitely there. We're gonna put up a few examples of the same photo, one scanned as a print and one scanned from a negative. And well, let the pictures speak for themselves. There's no need to explain. It's an astonishing difference. It's not always as extreme as in those examples that we'll show you. Sometimes it's more subtle, but it is. There's a huge difference, and I've been so impressed. And I had to change my sort of, negatives. Dealing with negatives is way too hard, but actually, it really pays.
Mm,
If you want a good quality scan, now, not everyone is going to scan, of course, but if you do, as you have just said, Fiona, camera scanning is the latest and greatest.
mm.
That's what the pros do mostly. And you can learn it yourself, or there are other scanners, flatbed scanners, for example, that also do scan negatives. There's always a bit of a learning curve, obviously, but what we would recommend to, if you do want to scan, to probably go and try find a local pro to outsource that step. It might not be as expensive as you expect, possibly, and asking doesn't cost a thing. So we'd highly encourage you to go and find a local pro, and then when you find one, just give them a few negatives, like a trial, and have them done and see the result. Yeah, do a bit of a test run.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's good.
What we highly would not recommend is to use your phone to do your scanning, whether that's prints or negatives, by the way. But what the phone can come in handy to look at the negative, because obviously looking at negatives is a bit of a nuisance because we need the backlight and all that. So sometimes to do that with your phone, to look at the negative and to find out what's in the picture, that can help, but we would not recommend scanning with your phone.
Yep, absolutely. And so as far as when you are scanning, yeah, you'll have different settings on the scanner. So just like we were talking about before, there's a bit of a learning curve. But you've been, for those that have been listening to us and have just found us recently, you're here because you want to learn. You're wanting to learn about your own photos and what you can do. And so, yeah, that's definitely an option for you to get some more learning in that area for yourself, and just find out what those settings are and what equipment you might have that you could use or something like that. So, um, as far as archiving goes with the negatives, we there's some great sleeves out there for negatives that are pre-made, and there's different sizes of negatives. Our traditional sort of 135 mil, which is the standard strip that we would have seen back in our day. um, but I've definitely dealt with a lot of the 110s, those little tiny thin ones, and then there's big one. There's a whole range of different sizes, but you can get sleeves for different sizes of negatives, and they really are ideally the best way to go. That's an optimal way to store your negatives because they're separated and they're safe from sticking together and from clumping and dust. And you can also then label the actual sleeve at the top so that you can know what's in your negatives there. You're retaining this digital information in the actual physical copy of them as well.
Mm.
So that's really a way to go. If you keep them in the developer's envelope, then it's better than nothing than just sort of taking them out of there and putting them all together in one big envelope or something like that. So if that's what you've got access to and you're not wanting to invest in the plastic sleeves, then yeah, just be aware of the potential risk for mildew, the humidity where you're storing them. Keep them in the middle of the house, not away, away from windows and light exposure, moist areas, attics and basements and things like that. So keep them in the house somewhere. And we always sort of suggest somewhere sort of central into the middle of the house. We'll plonk them in the middle of the lounge room. Probably not practical, but where I'm coming from. Yeah, so they're the main tips. Have we got any others on the scanning and archiving?
No, I think that's about it. Yeah. Maybe just a thought I had, we say yes, keep them. If you don't want to keep them and you don't intend to scan, by all means, throw them out. It's up to you. You decide.
Yeah.
Okay, these are our recommendations, but there's no law that tells you you
Mm.
have to stick to what we tell you. So it's up to you. But our intention is to give you a bit of background and information so you can make an informed decision, and then it's up to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that, Chantal. That's so true. And I think it's freeing to know that because we've come across this with photos as well, and negatives are no different. I think people have a almost this fear around negatives. They're like if people are going to let go of photos in
Mm.
general, and we're talking about deduplicating things, and we're talking it's so obviously some people find this very hard to let go of photos, even if they know it's of a tree that means nothing to them and they have no idea who took the photo, why it was taken, and it just means, but they still have difficulty throwing them out. And I think negatives fall into that category too. So thank you for sharing that and just allowing people to be released from that decision if they choose to make it. That's good.
Okay, shall we wrap that up?
Yeah, that's wonderful. So thank you so much for joining us. We have missed doing our recordings and we're looking forward to a fresh year now. We will be releasing a podcast episode once a month. So you can look forward to some new episodes this year with some guests. And And if you just jump over to the website, sign up to the newsletter, and there's a few different options for you there to have your name and email address with us so that you don't miss out on yeah, just things that we send through from time to time, and just some information for you on upcoming episodes when they're released.
That leaves us with also maybe pointing out that in the show notes there will be a few links to episodes, to past episodes that relate to this whole topic. So have a look there as well. There might be some more helpful information in terms of negatives. Check those out. And I'm Chantal from Photos in Order.
And I'm Fiona from Photo Helper. Thanks so much for tuning in. And as always, happy photo organizing. Bye.
Bye.